and stuff. What's happening, Mark?
How you doing? How's everything?
Good, man. You got a good beard going today?
Yeah, I trimmed it.
I think for the rest of my life, if I continue to try and grow mine out, I think I still wouldn't be able to get that rich of a beard in there. I stay naked right through here, no matter how long I grow it out.
Yeah.
I was 30 before I had to shave every single day. So
I've had a beard for so long that I've just decided to keep it.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not allowed to cut mine goatee off. It's like against the rules in my household. And I tell my wife, I'm like, when you married me, right? I said, when you married me, I had no facial hair. She's like, I don't care. You're leaving the goatee on.
She likes it. Yeah.
I was like, didn't you think I was handsome when you married me? She's like, yeah, but you're still leaving it on.
Yeah. I shaved mine off once and my wife was like, I don't even know who you are right now.
Right. Well, cool. They're letting everybody in. So we'll get started. I'm just looking at all the names that people are coming. Hello, everybody. We're going to get started in just a second. I'm excited. We're going to be doing the podcast live today, and try and mute yourself, but our team will mute everybody too as we get everybody in. But we're going to have an awesome podcast, and I'm excited for our guests today. So, just have everybody jump in, and we'll get everybody in, and then we'll mute people, and then we'll unmute people, and we'll get rocking and rolling and just start talking about some cool stuff. But we started off talking about our beards. So that's about how extraordinarily important today's podcast is and information is. But no, we're going to be talking about some really important things that are near and dear to us here at RADD Diversified, and some things that, I think make a difference in the way our world works and the way our country works, and, in men and women's lives. And I think it makes a big difference. So I'm excited to have Mark Steffens here today. And, Mark is one of those guys who not only has served our country and made a big impact on the freedom for all of us, but then when, he moved on to the rest of his life, there was so much more, right? And he had another mission. He had new things that he wanted to accomplish. And RADD Diversified, we support Task Force Dagger. We believe in their mission for our soldiers and our warriors, and believe in what they do and the impact that they make. And so, we're going to talk about a lot of cool topics today, but I just want to, get that message out there. And, we'll drop some links. You can always go to the RADD website, and we have a link actually directly to Task Force Dagger on our site. So you guys can go there and support and give to our soldiers and warriors. But rather than me saying it, Mark, right? I know, I can tell everybody in the world what a badass man you are, but I know you're a humble man, right? And I know for you, it's more about, the people that you help and the impact that you've been able to make in their lives. So let's just get it started the right way. And hey, let's give thanks to the warriors and soldiers that have made, so many sacrifices for us, but tell people what Task Force Dagger is, what it does, and the impact it makes on people's lives.
Absolutely. Listen, first of all, I just want to tell you and everybody, thank you for giving us, the foundation, the time and the platform to kind of share with you what we do and who we do it for. So as he mentioned, Task Force Dagger Special Operations Foundation, the keywords in there, special operations, those are the folks, the community of service people that we work with. The foundation's been around since about 2009. I've been involved in it probably since about 2011, initially as a volunteer, and then was asked to be on the board, and then a couple years ago asked to be the chairman. So I'm honored and privileged to be in the position I'm in, and will remain there as long as I'm having an impact. So to kind of break down what the foundation does, we do three things. And I say that because I think it's very important. There's a lot of great foundations out there that do wonderful things, but I also think it's very important that what you do, you stay on point, you stay on mission, you have no mission creep. And so we're very focused on that. So we do three things. We're doing really well. There's a lot of other things we don't do. And there's other great organizations that do those things. And we actually work when it's the right thing to do, we work with them to hand off people when we're done. But I'll go through and describe the pillars or the missions that we do. So the first one is immediate needs. And it is exactly what it sounds like. It's all the one-offs that the government, the VA, and a person's insurance doesn't cover. And we work hand in hand almost on a daily basis with the United States Special Operations Command. And they have a benevolent organization outreach interface to be able to work with us, and that is the Warrior Care Program. So we work directly with them. We receive requests or needs from them. They're vetted through their command, through the legal process through them, and then we get them. And as a board, we look at them and decide if it's within our charter to support, and then we execute and support. It can be anything from a plane ticket to getting childcare to, and I'm going to give some examples that I think are important. They're kind of tough, but this is the kind of stuff we deal with. We had an active duty individual deployed downrange, couldn't get a hold of his wife, and he called back to the unit and asked them to do a welfare check. And when they did, unfortunately, she had taken her own life, her kids' lives, and obviously he was sent immediately back. But there is no provision for the government to help him through this process, and he lived too close to base for them to put him up into a hotel. So we stepped in. So we took care of all those things, expenses. We took care of plane tickets for the family, stuff like that, had the house cleaned up after the fact. That's a very extreme example, but that gives you an idea of some of those immediate needs that come along that you may not think of. So we do quite a few of those for the Special Operations Command, and sometimes we get some direct from the components underneath SOCOM, but we try to really filter those through the headquarters. The next pillar or mission is our soft immediate needs, or I'm sorry, health initiatives. And that is where it's a little bit more extensive, and we do more with the individual as it relates to things like mental health, TBI, traumatic brain injury, PTS, counseling, from a physical standpoint, from injuries, stem cell therapies, hyperbaric chamber therapy. So there's a number of those. We have 7 pipelines that we've categorized these areas in, and we are not a provider, we are a facilitator. So within these pipelines, we've aligned with very reputable providers that can support these needs. And so what our role is again, when the insurance, the government, and the VA won't cover it, we will step in. And a great example is one of our providers is the Cleveland Clinic, and we do hormone replacement therapy, because we have found a lot of times that individuals that go to the VA and or go to their normal doctor can be diagnosed as depressed. Now, I'm not saying this is the case every time, but there are many examples where they're misdiagnosed as being depressed when in fact their hormones are out of balance. And once they understand the hormone profile and they address that, suddenly a lot of the secondary factors and issues that they're facing go away. And so, if antidepressants are needed, certainly they should have them, but they're a tough medicine, and they're not something that you just jump on and jump off. And so by doing this, we're able to help people manage their health a lot better. From, it helps with weight loss, all the way through, from a mental state. So these are the programs that fall under that category. And we've done, to date, I think we've probably supported about 350 people since about 2015, and which is quite a few. But I preface that with, we aren't even at the peak yet. And we can get into that more, I'm sure, based on some of your questions. But, we've been at war for 20 years, and we're just now starting to see the effects. We're not, we as a foundation are actually preparing for an increase in everything that we do. And I'm glad to expand on that in just a little bit. The last pillar or mission that we have program is the rehabilitative adaptive events. That is one of the missions where we're much more hands-on and directly involved with the people we support. One is called Dagger Dive. And what that is an event that occurs down in Key West. We use diving as a medium. They as a family, it's awesome. They get to learn how to dive and all that, but it's not, in a sense, it's a diving trip, but it's not centered around it being a diving trip vacation. It is actually, there's some thought that goes behind the medium of diving, and I'll get into that in just a minute. But we bring families in, and 99% of everything we do as a foundation is family oriented. So as I described the health initiative stuff, I can't just fix the veteran, the he or she. I've got to fix the spouse and the kids, or nothing gets fixed. So we address everything holistically so that we can actually have an impact, and it's not a recurring cyclic problem. But Dagger Dive is amazing. We hold it once a year down in Key West. This last year, I believe we had about 12 families, about 50 participants, and it's about 10 to 11 days. And we, as I mentioned, we use diving as a medium, and the people that we're getting and that we push to and work with the Special Operations Command to get pushed here are people that are truly in need at a certain point. And so an example is he or she deploys. So they're the alpha, they deploy. The mom or dad that's back has to become the alpha to manage the family, take care of the kids, and keep the household running without friction and all that stuff. And when that spouse gets home, now you have two alphas in the house, and you probably have about a 36-hour detente there before that friction starts to manifest itself. And 9 times out of 10, that friction is verbal. And what diving does is we take them out, we teach them how to dive, we take them out on a dive boat. We're teaching them a completely different way to communicate. And when you're in the water, obviously hearing and sound is not the same on the surface. So arguing is not the same. So if I take somebody down and I've taught them how to work together as a team, how to communicate by touch and sight, now they're having to completely learn a different method of communication. And it actually gives them a new start point to start to kind of build that family dynamic back, heal, and fit back in off of the deployment. So it's an amazing experience for them. I've seen it personally for several years, and the impact is always the same, but it's powerful. It's very powerful. And I'll say at the ending dinner of that event, if I could record it, which I can't, and we would never do that, but if I could, I would never have to ask for another donation as long as this foundation existed, because the families get up and give their own personal testimony about what this event does for them. And it's very powerful. It's amazing. I literally have seen a young man, probably 12, 13 years old, stand up and talk directly to his father about not wanting to disappoint him in that group because he felt confident enough to do it. And then all the other fathers stepping in to reinforce and reassure that young man the courage he had to do that. It's just a quick example, but it's a very powerful thing, very healing for the families. One of the other events that we do is we call it the Joint Recovery Team. And I gotta believe, I think we're the only benevolent organization where we have a benevolent organization, the government and academia all working together towards a common purpose. And in today's day and age, it's very impactful. And what the mission is, we work with the Department of POW and MIA Accounting Agency, DPAA, and the East Carolina University's Marine Archaeology Department to seek out, find, locate, recover, and repatriate remains from previous conflicts. We've been doing this since about 2017, 18, and it's been amazing. So what that's doing for our veteran community is giving them mission, purpose, and focus, because I'm sure you've heard a million times, you step away and, you know, some people can feel lost. They don't feel that they matter. They don't feel that they have a purpose. And this gives them that restart of mission, purpose, and focus. This is an actual government sponsored and funded mission. And, you know, what we bring to the table, some very highly skilled individuals that have, you know, honed these skills over a career, and we just apply them to this mission and problem solving set. And in 2018, we went to Saipan. We dove about 200 targets to identify things that they were looking for, but had been lost since World War II, since the Battle of Saipan. And during that trip, we literally found 2 Hellcat aircraft that had been lost for, you know, 75 plus years. And the following year we went and we started the excavation process and the recovery process. And as we all know, 2020 and 21 COVID impact that, but we went back this year and we went back to that same site, tried to bring back as many of the same folks as we had before and give them the opportunity to try to close this out. But I at this point can't share what it is we specifically found, because these individuals are granted, as they should be, the same family notification process as anybody would be today. And so as DPA looks for these individuals, until they can positively identify them, no official announcement is made, and the specifics of the case aren't shared. But I can say that we were very successful in some of the things that we were able to recover, and now it's up to DPAA to, you know, to kind of put the final stamp on it. And once that happens, then obviously, you know, we would be able to talk more about that. But that's just an example of this mission and what it does, and the mission, purpose, focus that it gives these individuals, and helping them through some of the struggles that they may have from a separation. So that's a real quick snapshot of our 3 programs underneath our overall mission. And if you guys have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to ask.
Well, I think there's a lot of questions, you know, I have as you dive down. I think my mind ran through like 94 different subjects while you're running through those things, because of how my mind works. And I just find it so, you know, fascinating, the work that you guys are doing, because there's so many, you know, psychological aspects that, you know, people deal with on a daily basis, you know, as we have new people join our company, as we have, you know, families and different things. And I think, you know, I think what a lot of people right on here, there's probably not an issue or a challenge that you're talking through that a lot of people haven't seen in their own lives in different ways. I think when it comes to, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, right? I think when it comes to what, you know, our warriors are dealing with, is it's an intensification of all of those things. There's a recovery, there's a grieving period, right? You know, we recently had one of our team, you know, had a few family members who passed away, and you know, and obviously that never stops sucking, right? But you know, she's going to have to go through, you know, similar processes, you know, to recover. But then there's also, you know, the challenge that they're coming back to try and reintegrate, right? And like we've had a lot of, you know, professionals, you know, join our company, and the difference between, you know, military life and civilian life, and being in that environment versus in a corporate environment or an environment like ours, which wants them here, right? There's a lot of changes, and there's a lot of dynamics with that. What do you feel like, you know, our soldiers face, you know, when they re-enter into civilian life?
So that's a great question. What do they face? So it's different for everybody. There are, you know, everybody deals with those challenges in a different way. I don't know what the recipe is. Is it the way you were raised? Is it your genetics? I really don't know, but I do know that everybody will handle it differently, and the individual struggle that somebody may have will be very different as well. And then, again, why we have kind of the diversified program set that we have as far as our solutions to address them, there's a lot of different angles to go with, because even though I may be talking to somebody with TBI or talking to somebody with PTS.
So tell everybody what TBI, what PTS. I mean, I think a lot of
Traumatic
people
brain injury and post-traumatic stress, and what will work for one may not work for another, and sometimes it takes multiple treatments of various types to have a positive impact. And we've seen that. I mean, we've been doing some of the things that we've been doing longer than SOCOM has been doing, because they didn't have this program in place. And some of the cares that we provide are now becoming institutional within the command, but they started with us, or maybe another exposure through a different benevolent organization. But it was, at that time, it was like it's voodoo. And, we do our due diligence to make sure, there's all kinds of treatments out there to do all kinds of things, and you hear everything. But, what is standard today, you look back 10 years ago, may not have been considered appropriate or standard. And so we've gone through that. But to get back to your question, and it's funny because me personally, there are things that, and this is just being completely honest, there are things that I would have looked at people and said, wow, that's, I don't get that. I don't understand that. How could you think that way? Or why would you react that way? And an example of that is, we have a high rate of veteran suicide. And, a lot of people could look at that as weakness or this, but, since I've been out, and even while I was in, I had folks that were close to me that had committed suicide. I knew them. I knew they weren't weak. I knew what kind of people they were. And so for them to make this choice, because they're problem solvers, I saw them on the field of battle. I saw how they fought. So for them to make this decision, they had to feel that this was the only right thing for them to do. And to be in that place, some of it was, I'm doing this because, I think I'm doing the right thing by my family. Of course, we're all going to say no to that, but they reached a point that they could rationalize that. And so I look at all of that stuff very differently now.
They have to get to a point sometimes, and it has to be where making that choice is, and obviously nothing's in every case, right? But they're making that choice to protect others, right? They've gotten to a point where, that their view of reality, their view of how the world is running, their view of themselves, right, has been damaged. And a lot of people don't understand that, like, there's so many neurological connections, right? Yes. in our brains, and they're damaged by lots of different things, and they're damaged by intense moments, right? And our soldiers go through more intense moments than someone like me probably can dream of, right? And they might go through more intense moments in a week than I might go through my entire life. And so people can't understand what that does to taking what is normal, right? And now it's a different normal.
That's exactly right. And you said it very well. And TBI is a great example. There's impact TBI, where you hit something or you're hit. And then there's like a overpressure type of TBI, where you're exposed to an explosion, a high explosive IEDs, things like that. And you can receive two different types of damage and have TBI on top of TBI, and treatments are different, and approaches to that are different. And what these treatments, some of the treatments that we will try to get our folks to is, and I will tell you, since this war, there's been such a high level of education and advancement in these areas. You know, had we known what we know today, from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the difference that would have made for these folks would have been tremendous. And a lot of them faced it with, just dealt with it and succumbed to it. But the treatments, I think the end goal is some of the damaged area it's not going to heal, but you can teach your brain to rewire itself and find new neural pathways to connect, to create a new, to do the same function, but just in a different path. And so that's what we try to do, or that's the goal when it comes to TBI. And there's a lot to be said for PTS too. Counseling is a big one. We have some amazing counselors that can work with them, folks, and really kind of get them to understand. And they use different techniques, but they're very successful in how to help a person categorize that information so that they can handle it and deal with it like they would deal with an everyday problem. There's no magic answer here. There's no magic, pill to take, but they do some incredible work to help with that. And then you have some people who have lost limbs or had other types of injuries. And because of that, you get it back into, the emotional side. So I can, even if I fix the limb or we get a prosthetic, we still have to address the emotional side, because, that has been affected too, because they don't feel whole, or they don't feel like, they're a contributing member to society like they once were, or they feel like their family looks at them differently. It's, their family's certainly not conveying that, but in their own head, they're feeling that. And this is feedback I've gotten from a number of people.
I think that each individual person in the world, right, what's very real to them is extraordinarily real to them, right? And I think lots of times when people are trying to understand people, they're trying to put themselves into their shoes, and I kind of get that as one tool or one technique to put someone else in someone's shoes. But the reality is you can't actually put yourself in someone's shoes. And so how you may view something from your experiences, your environment, your background, your life is not how someone else is viewing experiences, background to their life, right? And there's the physical damage, but the mental damage, right, that combines with the two together, right, can be as real or more important, because they're dealing with stuff that like a soldier's has an arm cut off or blown off or whatever happened, right, is it's very obvious to people that something traumatic has happened to them. But a soldier who doesn't have visual signs of damage, it's not obvious to everybody, right? But they might be going through very similar mental challenges from the experiences that has happened to them. And so it's deep in that sense of how do you find commonalities to help people while addressing the individual challenges at the exact same time.
Yeah, no, I would go as far as to say that invisible injuries are in some ways, not in every way, but in some ways worse than your visible injuries, because at least visibly you can rationalize what state you're in. When your head is not, your emotions are not working the way you think they should, and you're trying to understand it, that is a much more tremendous, if I've lost a leg, I can get a prosthetic and I can work out and I can work my balance. But with your head, unless you get somebody that can really direct you to real help, you're floundering. You don't even have a start point. And how do I get my hands around this? And especially in this community, this is a community, one, that doesn't want to share their problems, won't ask for help, and they're problem solvers. And so their first inkling is to try to fix it on their own and address it that way. And 9 times out of 10, they're just going to become more frustrated. And so it's a heck of a challenge, but I think you articulated that well.
Do you feel like as new generations are coming through, right? And
Mhm.
and different age groups are coming through and stuff. Do you feel like the challenges with new soldiers coming out today are facing, like, for example, people entering in to our armed forces today or 2 years ago, right? When COVID hit, or today, who went through 2 years of a pandemic world, right? Might see things very differently 4 years, 6 years from now when they leave, right? Or 10
Mhm.
years from now when they leave than soldiers from 10 years ago leaving today, right?
Sure.
Do you see like some generational differences?
There always is. Yes. I mean, just, you can see how the military is conforming to that. I mean, and when I came in, we weren't a data digital based military. And you look at the kids coming in, the gamers and all that, and a lot of the technology, we're leaning towards that and really trying to recruit that. So inevitably, yes, you're always going to have a little bit of difference. But there's something I will tell you, this generation is taken a lot of crap, but I will say this, we've been at war for 20 years and we've not had a draft, and it's not politics, it's not race, it's not religion. Our ranks are filled by everybody. We all bleed red. And for 20 years, we've never had to go to a draft. And that includes this generation of people. And even more so when I came in, it was a peacetime military. We weren't at war. These guys and gals are coming in knowing they're going to war. They're going to fight. They're coming in to fight. So there's still something in there that are young, not all, but a lot of them are ready and understand the challenge ahead of them. I think just the dynamics around that and how we go about it are different. And every generation kind of has their thing. That's why we name them. They all have their little signature nuances, if you will. But I think collectively, and that's the other thing, once they get in the military, I think that environment brings people together in common areas more than if you were never to be in it and as a group, if that makes sense. In other words, you get in there, and a lot of these things that would make the difference, to your question, when you get into the military, the military is here to do one thing. I mean, there's a lot of neat jobs and they do a great job of recruiting, but our armed forces are here to fight and win wars, and that's it. That is the bottom line. And so,
I mean, it's one of the beautiful parts of America, right? Is that when you look at that, our country is defended by people who chose to defend it, right? Our country, does the things in the world because they chose to, right? And you look at, Ukraine, China, right? There's conscription, right? I think if I'm using that word right, and there's people, forced into the military, they're forced into service, and I'm sure there's there is some good of that when every citizen knows what it's like to serve your country, right? But also, I think one of the reasons America is amazing is because, like, I grew up knowing that my older brother Brent, right, went out and sacrificed and fought, right, for me to have freedom, and I didn't go the military route like my brothers did, but at the same time, I took a responsibility with that to say I'm going to use that freedom. I'm gonna
yes.
I'm gonna live that freedom, and even as a person who wasn't in the military, it sounds crazy, but there's a slight amount to guilt to that if you're an American and you have certain beliefs, right? And as I got older, I said that's kind of crazy to have guilt about that because it didn't serve anything for me, right? And so but I also said I want to honor the sacrifices that my brother made, the sacrifices that others made, and I'm going to do more, right, to impact or help in that way. And I think but as the rest of our country were to take that mindset and I think it would serve our professionals, who went and I always call our military folks who come into the civilian world professionals, because I just think you went and spent 4 years being a professional soldier and doing something that I can't fathom, right? I can't understand. There's no matter how many, Call of Duty video games I play, how many movies I watch, no matter how many, professionals work in the company, and it's not like they don't share war stories, but no matter how many I'm around, I'll never have an understanding, the true understanding. But I think if America said, we want to make the greatest life possible for those who've sacrificed to go and keep us safe and free, I think a lot of our country would view certain things a little differently.
I couldn't agree with you more. I've been asked that question before, and service comes in many forms. I know a lot of people kind of think of service as being in the military or first responder, but I would tell you service comes in many forms. Not everybody's meant to go in the military or be a first responder, but it doesn't mean that you don't, join in and become a productive member and again, serve in other ways. And that's a great point you bring up, because what I tell myself when it comes up on an anniversary of a buddy I lost, or you see people that have given the ultimate sacrifice, and there's a bit of this survivor's guilt, or how did I get missed and they got hit, or but at the end of the day, it is what it is. You can't really rationalize that part. But what you can do is you can be the best version of yourself for them. That's the sacrifice. That is how you pay back the sacrifice. That's how you pay homage to what they did, is you be the best version of yourself and live and be productive and say their name. Never forget.
And it's a decision about that moment. Like that, there's I think every human being on earth can look at moments in their life that they replay. And I know that, like, I remember I always believe I should have had a better college baseball career. And I know that's very micro, or it's not nearly as important as someone who went and served, but I always replay that where I thought I should have been better, right? I thought there were certain things that should have went better for me or should have happened better, right? Thought maybe how I handled things should have been different. And there was a time in my life, 15, 20 years ago, where I used to replay some of those moments. And I could see, soldiers replaying moments and then making a decision about those moments, about how they're going to allow that to be what's going to be going forward. And I remember, at one point in time, I said, I know I am what I am as an entrepreneur. One of many, many reasons is because I said, I'm never going to let anybody else control my destiny or my future ever again. I'm not going to let anything outside of my individual choices control my destiny and future. And certain things I went to replay, but I also just took responsibility, said how I'm going to be going forward. But I also take a look at those moments and say, but from this moment forward, I'm not going to have a moment I look back and said, I would have done this differently. I would have handled this differently, because those moments have already happened. Right. And there's nothing you can do about a moment that's already happened besides make choices or decisions about how they make you who you are today. Right. And then what's going to help you decide who you're going to be and the actions you're going to take as you go forward. I think everybody, I could be wrong, but I think everybody has moments they replay.
100%. I mean, that's why the military does AARs, after action reports. I mean, you can always do better. And once the bullet's gone, it's downrange. You're not getting it back. But at the same time, you can reflect and learn from it. That's where a mistake is not valuable. We all make mistakes. We can all recover. We can all learn. But if you don't learn, then you lost that opportunity and the value of the mistake. Because the organization that I served in, the majority of my adult life, we messed up a lot. And the whole idea in training is to figure things out and to see what works, what doesn't work. So when it's real, you've kind of learned those lessons and you apply them. Don't repeat the mistake, obviously, but it's okay to make a mistake and pick up and move on.
I was talking with Brent, and we were talking about business, and Brent's my older brother, for people who don't know, who did special operations and first introduced me to Task Force Dagger and to Mark, and him and I were having this conversation. And sometimes my team makes mistakes, and I got to go and allow them to make mistakes to learn and grow in the business world. But I think in the military world, there's times where you can't afford to allow people to make mistakes, because a mistake can be a life. And I find that I think that's one of the harder integrations I've seen, I think, with some military professionals into civilian work life, right? Is that like there's a different way that mistakes are measured, different how mistakes are handled, and the consequences of mistakes, right? And so, I don't know, how do you guys, how do you view that? Because you've made the transition, right, from that professional life to being successful, in business and your professional career as well. Maybe help, that's probably a really important subject for people.
It is. And I mean, you just kind of answered why I do what I do. I'm a volunteer for this organization. And I absolutely love it. I wouldn't trade it. And I have this philosophy that if we don't take care of our own, nobody else will. And when I got out, there weren't the programs that are available now. There weren't the things that kind of helped you navigate that transition. And for me, I had some lessons learned and tried to figure things out. And, being a leader on an assault team, and the way I can communicate to my men and how I lead my men is a little different than when I'm in a company and I've got, folks that work for me from all different walks of life. And, I learned real quick that, how I communicate and how I address issues, for example, is very different. But at the end of the day, everything that I learned as a leader, I applied. This is the way I approached it. It's a new mission. I just got to figure it out. I've got to, do my intel study. I got to figure it out and problem solve, because I think, and again, in the special operations community, what you're really hired to do, it's not the guy that's the best shot or the guy that does this or the gal that does that. It's your problem solving abilities on the fly. And to your point, we are burdened with life and death decisions that happen in the moment. And, it doesn't always work. It doesn't always work out. And you have to live with the consequence of that. But, but all those things translate into the business world. And the way I viewed it, I'm by no means am I an expert. I'm not, classically trained in business. But my approach was exactly what I just outlined, and I found my way. I've still got a lot to learn, and I'm always open to it. And but I have used that as kind of my model. The other thing that I think that the military kind of looks at a little bit differently than the corporate world, there's a difference between a leader and a manager. And the corporate world sometimes blends those or doesn't really understand the difference. And so to have the right person in the right position, are they a leader or are they a manager? Some people can do both. But, those were the things that I kind of used and applied. And I think I've done okay. My transition has been good. And then, it's allowed me again to be in a position to, do what I do with the foundation.
I think some leaders should never be managers, but I don't think there should ever be a manager without some leadership skills and some leadership training over the years. I think for me, with the rapid growth we've gone through, right? There's a book called Scaling Up, that I read, and it talks about one of the principal reasons that organizations fail when they're growing fast is leadership. And having enough leaders and having enough, effective leaders and enough trained leaders. But leadership takes, time. I know that there are people born with like leadership traits, leadership characteristics. Some people just have, it's in their DNA. But I also think there's other types of leadership, that are learned, right? I think, like, as I grew up, I think I always worked and wanted to be a leader, or I tried to be a leader, right? But I think I spent a lot of time maybe turning people off, right? Or turning people like in high school, I got voted as biggest ego in my high school, right? And in reality, like, my true mission in my heart was, right, I wanted to help, right, my fellow athlete or my fellow student person, right? And yeah, I was very good at a lot of things, but that wasn't what I expected, right? But that was kind of, I think, first of many, right, in my lifetime of thinking, I'm going to go lead, but obviously wanting to go lead obviously is not necessarily has anything to do with whether you're a leader or not, right? And I think, that's kind of fascinating, as I look at our organization and where we've gotten to with leadership is I think servant leadership is something that, I've wanted and kind of something I've owned over the years is be, if you can be a servant to the people that you lead while also knowing, that there's a time and place for different actions.
Sure.
I mean, I think, maybe, I don't know, in the military, I don't know if that's in the corporate world. I know that that's working, right? In the military, that there's probably times where you can and times where you can't be that type of leader.
Yeah. I mean, so it's funny. I spent my entire career in special operations. So in a sense, I never grew up in the conventional military, and, and I've worked with those guys and gals, love them, but it's a different structure than what I was accustomed to. And that, if you have the rank, you can dictate, but that doesn't allow for effective communication. That doesn't allow for other things. And I think the people that figure out, that side of it, do well when they transition. For me on my team, for example, when I was a team leader of an assault team, I think we were all the same rank, so rank didn't matter. So any one of those people could have picked up and taken my spot, but I had to be effective from a completely different level, and apply their capability to whatever the mission or whatever the challenge was in front of me or us. And so, for me, communication, many other interpersonal skills were developed in that environment, I think. Now, my wife may challenge me on that later, but I really believe that, that helped me quite a bit.
It's fascinating because in the corporate world, there's rank, right? And I think that's fascinating, and title is very important to a lot of people, in the corporate world. And I think that's, fascinating, where you're in an assault team and you have a specific mission, a specific target, specific things you have to go and accomplish and do. And there's no time, right, for rank in, what this opinion versus that opinion versus, what somebody, ate for dinner last night versus what somebody's religious faith is versus somebody's political views versus this in when you're accomplishing mission, and I think that's fascinating because we battle with all of those things, right?
Sure.
In a corporate environment, on any given, day, people have, all of these conversations going on, and you guys are in a moment where you don't have time to separate, mission from life in those
right.
moments.
You basically have to triage, and it's the same in the corporate world. You just may have a little more time, but you have to triage what's important in that moment and deal with that. What is going to achieve mission success, and what is, in the case of the military, mission success and bringing everybody home. In the corporate world, the stress is still there. I mean, I've seen it, but how you manage it and from a leadership position to get people behind you to address whatever it is that challenge is, all that is the same. I would just say, one of the differences is, the circumstances behind it in the moment. There's an example that for me, and this is just speaking for myself, that, in my career, there were times when things got real simple and got real. And you literally started looking at life in 30-second increments. Like, if I get this next 30 seconds, what am I going to do? If I get another 30 seconds, what am I going to do? Because, I was in a position I really thought, this is it. and you really think, if I could only have 30 more seconds, I can tell you how simple life gets in that moment, and what you focus on versus what isn't necessarily important. And I know, speaking in other corporate settings where I've seen people get upset and kind of focused on the wrong thing. And a simple reminder, hey guys, you're not being shot at. We're okay. Let's just take a minute and talk through this and figure it out. And but I will also concede that stress is stress. And when you're in those moments, whether it be in the corporate side or the military, you still feel it. You still have to address it, that challenge.
I was just trying to think to myself what the next 30 seconds would be like. And then I didn't know what to say after that. So, it's kind of fascinating as you think, if you did that exercise, 30-second increments, one of our investors once said to me, he said, I did an exercise with my kids. And he said, what if there was no food at the grocery stores and there's no electricity for the next 10 days, what would you and what would you and your family's life look like? And he made him sit at a kitchen table and go through that exercise. And I thought that was pretty cool, just because he was been trying to convince them to, have a little more preparation, a little more security, a little more safety for him and their family when his sons were in their 20s. But it was that exercise that actually got them to start thinking in a way that started to kind of change or shift those kind of things. And I know I'm ADD, so it's not like these two thoughts are consecutively going together. When our professionals get out, right? What's the financial life look like for them? Like, what are the different decisions? What are the different things they're facing? Because that, for a civilian, our highest level of stress for most civilians, I think, money obviously is one of the big ones. And, I think mental health, if they're fighting or, forcing with mental health, relationships, right? Those are some of the biggest ones, right? I mean, people get, mad about what somebody else says or what somebody else does, but those aren't real and to the point of, but when it comes to those things, so what's that money or that financial part look like for our professionals as they come out?
That's a great question. So, I mean, obviously, people get out at different stages. They separate from the military after 3, 4, 5 years. Some people retire out, some people are medically retired out, some people retire as a general officer, some retire as a lower enlisted. So, from that standpoint, what you walk out with is your start point, and it's different for everybody. So with that, as you can imagine, there are challenges, and kind of focusing on your lower enlisted or your not general officers. There are challenges. I will tell you, and this blows me away or astonishes me that probably our E5s, E4s with families in our military, in many cases, are below the poverty line, serving our country, and they're below the poverty line. And that's, how is that even possible? So right off the bat, they're living paycheck to paycheck. They're doing that, that thing that your brother may have shared with you. I mean, we've always made jokes about it down on Yakin Road at Fort Bragg. Guys would go down and pawn their stuff, and then, right after an inspection, and, hopefully have enough money at the end of the month to go get their stuff back. And it's a vicious cycle. And so there's a lot of challenges there.
And when you're young, you're going to be stupid with money regardless.
No, 100%.
No, that's not even
right.
On top of not having a lot of money, you're going to be stupid with it regardless.
Sure. No, 100%. Your focus at that point is very different than it is as you mature and get a family and kind of settle a little bit. But they have challenges, and education, unless they seek it out themselves, really don't get it. I will tell you, and to dovetail into that question, it's like a lot of our donors for this organization a lot of them come from the veteran community. So it's, it's the veteran community giving back to the veteran community. And, one of the things that I'm trying to do, and this is a little outside your question, but I think it'll come back, is educating the rest of us, other folks, about the greater community, if you will, about what we do specifically, but in general, our veterans and our soft veterans in need. And the other point you made about, unless it's hard to understand unless you've walked in somebody's shoes or, have shared an experience to really understand it. But that doesn't alleviate the challenge of me trying to communicate that to people who don't understand and finding a way to make that connection. My background, I'm so uncomfortable talking about what I used to do and, and all that stuff, but I've come to peace with, I'll share enough. If I can make a connection to somebody that can help us help our folks, then I'll do it, because it's that important to me to try to find a way to share it and then get it about these challenges. Because if you're not faced with these challenges, it's hard. I'm guilty of that. If I'm not homeless, can I appreciate it? Absolutely. Have I seen it downrange? Absolutely. But I'm not homeless. So it's hard for me to wrap my head about every challenge a homeless person might have, but you find a way to communicate it the best you can. And, and that gets back to the money when they get out and the challenges. And when they're challenged with the other things that we talked about, physically, emotionally, mentally, they may not even be able to step out and get a job. So they're completely reliant on whatever it is they had when they stepped out. If you did not retire, you're dependent on the VA system and getting a job or disability.
I mean, but also, if money is a primary conversation for you, right? You have a family,
Sure.
You have things that are going on, you get out, right? If money is tight, there's not time to work on the things you need to work on, to process through the things you need to process through.
That's right.
And time is needed to work on those things. Like I know for me as an entrepreneur, and it always blows my mind, because I hear, like, on social, I hear, like, how hard you have to work and how much time you have to put in, and the 10,000 hours and all of these different things to be a successful entrepreneur. But I'll tell you right now that when I have time and I take that time and I use it, right, to focus on my mind, focus on me and making me strong, right? And when I'm strong, work becomes easy, money becomes easy, relationships become easy, things start to fall in place. But if you don't have any money, there's definitely not time, right, to work out of the dysfunction, to work out of the disease, right, that you've been hit with. And
Yep.
and two people can have the exact same impact in their life, and the disease they come out with, or the trauma they come out with, could be completely different symptoms or completely different results after the fact. And so I don't know, maybe there's something they could do, to give soldiers time for that transition more effectively.
Well, yes, everything you said is spot on. And
those are all just guesses for me. So
no. But your connection to self and this is exactly the same. I mean, if you don't work on self, it's just kind of like a spiral. And once you're in that spiral, one problem leads to another problem. So if there's not some point you can stop, plant your feet, and address self, and then and become work on self, and then family and everything else, you're never ahead. And then again, it compounds the frustration, compounds the emotional piece and stuff like that. And so but the military has adopted programs, and I will say that the soft community, probably better than the conventional side, has addressed this. When people have identified that they're going to separate, in other words, retire or whatever, they're given a period of time prior to the actual separation date to quote unquote get their affairs in order. And, and that is getting a head to toe medical evaluation, a prep program, going through and evaluating everything, documenting it. So when you do inevitably have to transition to the VA system, hopefully everything's captured and you get an accurate rating on what it is that you have going on. So yeah, they do have programs like that. And as long as you make the effort, you go. They haven't always been there. So you have you have segmented people prior to that stuff that have the challenges, and they just didn't have the opportunity to attend those things. So, but that leads right back, that's the gap. That's why there's a benevolent organization. That's why there's us. We try to help bridge that gap, that give them the opportunity to plant their feet, work on self, and then hopefully that leads to whatever it is they want to do, whether they want to be an entrepreneur or start a business or work for a corporation or whatever. And in fact, that I talked about like what we do and how we have no mission creep. Well, but what I will do, or what we do is work with other organizations. So I usually get people at their worst. So I get them, we work with them, and then when the time is right, I try to work with very good organizations and hand them off. And that next step may be, how do I craft a resume, or how do I step into the corporate space? And there are some really good organizations that focus solely on those things. But until you get the front end fixed, that it won't matter, that you'll be wasting your time. And people talk about team, and again, this is just kind of my take on team. You can't, unless you are squared away. And like when the Army brings somebody up through the Army and they become a leader, leadership and planning is taught at the very basic level, right out of basic training, right off the bat. So if you don't have a good base of self and everything's taken care of, you can't be a productive member of the team. So team is family. So you have to take care of self, and you have to be a productive self before you can be a productive member in the family. So that's kind of that's kind of our approach to that.
I used to look at businesses that we would, joint venture with, or we'd work with, or we do strategic, missions with as a company. And I would always look at, the principles, and I would always look at like, where's like, what's wrong here? What's wrong with this picture? Because if there was things that I saw that were wrong in there, like if their personal lives were a mess, if the other components were a mess, right? And I knew in this moment, this whatever business or whatever action we were taking could only be short term, and because long term they were going to eat themselves up, and I knew I couldn't continue, to do business with them or associate in business with them long term. And now, as we've gotten bigger over the years, we can more strategically pick people we do business with, and we, as you come further down the line. But I think kind of what you're saying, though, in some ways, is there's a lot of generational stuff to some of the framework that you've been sharing. And this is the thought that was running through my mind, is stuff that 15 years ago, they didn't do at SOCOM. Right now they're doing to make an impact, on soldiers' lives. Right. But those are things that you guys knew about and you understood in 2011 when you joined, right? Task Force Dagger. And so I think it's fascinating, because I start to think of into their mission with soldiers. And what are you thinking, some of those more critical things that, that soldiers are needing, that you'll see like as the evolution. I mean, I think it's amazing that they've adopted things that you guys were the only ones doing things for soldiers before. I think that's a testament to the leadership, right? That they realize that what an important, issue it is. I didn't really ask a question, so I didn't really lead you somewhere there.
Your audio skipped out for a second, so hopefully I didn't miss a question.
Oh, I have a question.
Yes.
How long do you spend on veterans that are overly prideful and stubborn to help themselves before, they take up a great amount of resources that could, be more beneficially used?
Right. That's a great question, a tough question. So, internally we have, we've kind of mapped out what our standards are when it comes to those pipelines that we provide care for. And an example, if we sent somebody to a rehab or something and they relapsed, I think to your question, do I send them back? Is that a good use of that money? Could that money be better used serving somebody else? And some of those are case by cases. In that particular case, what I would not do is send them back to the same treatment. Obviously, it didn't work. We would look at other avenues to see if they were successful, but internally we review those things so that we don't go down that path of reoccurring support if somebody is not going to because for a lot of this to be successful, you have to want to be fixed, you have to want to have the help. And we're not here to force people, we're here to educate and get them to see and hopefully make that personal decision and commitment. But we faced that where we've sent people to different things, and I don't know that they came out any better on the other end. We didn't walk away from them. We actually tried to point them in other directions for other type treatments, to make sure that somebody had a hand on them to make sure that they were getting some kind of care. But to answer your question, so we internally look at that and review. I wouldn't say we have a full-blown medical advisory board, but we have a pretty good advisory board that reviews some of these cases that aren't just standard things, to see how would we address them. I hope that answered your question.
Yes. Well, I know it's a tough question. And
Sure.
it's kind of out there. There's no pat answer. Do you provide therapy animals or find organizations to provide animal therapy for some of these veterans?
Yes, we have done that. We've actually at Fort Bragg, we've worked with a couple different entities that uses horses, and the commands actually support this, and it's been very effective. As far as therapy with canines, we've not really gone down the canine path outside of getting them a service animal or something like that. But we have done the equine stuff with horses. Yes.
So that's
I cut out for the internet. I cut out for the internet for a little bit, but I think it's perfect timing for us to hit questions from the tribe and an audience. And I think Karen's already well down that path. Karen, ask another one if you want to ask another one, and then we'll have some other people ask some questions too.
Oh, I don't want to take over.
You have to ask another one now, otherwise I feel bad for jumping in.
I mean, no, whatever was there has disappeared. So
I'm just teasing you. When you get a chance to ask another one, feel free to. And let's kind of dive in. And if there's questions in the chat box, if my team wants to let me know what those are, that would be awesome too.
I want to leave
just to dovetail into your question. What we look for are therapies at work. It's not we don't do something because we've chosen not to do something. If we find something that's effective and repeatable, we will do it. Again, we facilitate. So, we're always open to recommendations. and if they fit what we do, we will absolutely entertain that. So but that's how the horse therapy came to us. It was somebody brought it to our attention, asked us if we would look into it, and we did our due diligence, and we met with the therapists at JSOC and at USSOC, and basically had a discussion with them to see, because when you first look at it, you're like, how does this program help? And so having it broken down and then looking at the data from the people that had received it and their feedback, made it look like it was a very relevant and doable therapy. So.
Very cool. Very cool. Anybody else would love to unmute themselves and ask Mark a question, or me too, but he's the superstar here. So I'm getting to interview him. So it's pretty cool. So Mark, with all the things you've seen in your life, right, with current events that are going on in the world and stuff, right? And, there's so many ranges of conspiracy theories or different things that people talk about. And we don't need to dive down, those rabbit holes. When you know that there's things going on in the world there's always scary things that are happening in the world, right? And I think most Americans can't understand, the freedom at what they have to walk down the street and not have to worry about something blowing up, and maybe just kind of share with people things, how do you balance the two, knowing what you know in the world?
It's a great question. It can be challenging because, I have the experiences I have, and to me, they are absolute, and they are, they are the reality that I have experienced. Other people haven't experienced those realities. And so, saying something or hearing it on the internet or, and running with it isn't the same. I will say that I have traveled a big chunk of this world and normally, when I'm sent, it's never to the garden spots necessarily. And so you end up seeing some, the rougher side of people, life, societies, countries, the way things are done. And there is no other place I would ever want to be than here. And no matter the stuff going on, I mean, it's ours to lose. It's delicate. We have to protect it, no question. There's plenty of historical examples out there of societies coming up and going down, and what was the cause behind that. But I would hope that everybody in this country would appreciate this country for what it is, and no politics, no religion, none of that stuff. Just the fact that you live in a place that it's not perfect, but it's way more perfect than a lot of the other places where you really do have a concern about safety, real safety, and other things happening. Being in a position where you can't protect your family, and them being in a situation that would be a real risk. Those are daily things, but trying to convey that to people can be a challenge sometimes, because again, unless you've lived it, it's really hard to appreciate that. That's why I talk about that 30-second thing, unless you've been in that true situation where, this is it. It's hard to wrap your head around how clear things actually get in that moment, and being able to separate what you see on the news and all that stuff, because it's a challenge. You really have to dig to kind of get to the root of things for you to make a clear, personal judgment and create a educated opinion. And unless you're willing to put in that effort and succumb to the headlines or whatever, it's really hard to convey, you know, how good we really have it here and how it can be challenging in some of these other second and third world countries that, you know, wish they could be or have the stability that we have.
You know, delicate's an interesting word with it too, right? And you know, 2001, you know, we had 9/11, and you know, our a lot of Americans' reality was you know, shaken, you know, 20 plus years ago. And for me, I remember being in college, and I remember, you know, actually, you know, was riding a bike and pulled up to one of my college teammates, you know, front doors, and he's got the TV on, and I'm looking through the window, and I can't get him to answer the door because he's, you know, in a deep dive into, you know, what happened that day. And there's been other, obviously, terrorist attacks on America since 2001, but I don't know that the average American has had one that shook their reality or hit their reality the way that one did, because it happened here.
Yeah.
And I don't think people realize how delicate that is for us not to have had another, you know, one here to that extent that took life. You know, I know we did have the pipeline, you know, attack not that long the electrical grid attack in the Northeast not that long ago, which was a terrorist attack, you know, on us as a country that a lot of people aren't aware of, right? You know, out there in the world, like how delicate is it? I mean, maybe talk a little bit more. How maybe I just, and everything you said, that was the term that like most people can't understand, that piece, that piece of it. And I have traveled the world, and I've seen, you know, things that I, you know, I've seen things here in the US that I can't believe exist in the US.
Right.
And then I've traveled the world, and then I was like, well, it's different.
Yeah. I mean, here's a great example in the soft community. You know, when you get into special operations, it's not like you took a pill and all of a sudden you're a superhero and, you know, you have all these hidden abilities. The difference can be very small. It can be razor thin. And that same difference is an example of the greatness of our nation and keeping the stability in our country and allowing somebody else to disrupt it. And the men and women of our armed forces, our intelligence communities, you know, all the government entities that are put in place to protect our nation. It's not all just military, but they have been the line in the sand preventing anything catastrophic. Because trust me when I tell you, it's not for them not trying. It's just that we have been successful, and success sometimes is razor thin, probably thinner than most people would want to know.
Well, you don't hear about the success, right?
No, you don't.
Because a failure would be, you know, human life or damage here on our soil.
But sometimes success, I mean, in to your point, but there's a reason sometimes by sharing a success may divulge a capability. And you know, we don't want our adversaries to know exactly how we do what we do to be successful. So sometimes not sharing it, you know. Now, I'm not saying there aren't times it would be nice for America to understand from a strategic definition what is being done, so that they can at least appreciate that, you know, just because you're not hearing about something doesn't mean things aren't happening. I mean, right now, you know, our conventional forces for the most part are not engaged in combat, but our special operations forces are and have been and haven't stopped since. First in, last out. They're still engaged. They're still fighting in Syria. There's still things going on. You just don't necessarily hear about it. And that is why, you know, I keep harping on the special operations community, and it's nothing against our greater military by any means, but the burden, the lift, the heavy lift, the stress, the damage, the miles, the toll is really the bulk of it is on our special operations community, because they haven't stopped. They have not, I mean, they're deployed in hundreds of countries at any one time, doing things, preventing a major conflict from happening. So, you know, when that breaks, that has a big effect. So, you know, we have to, you know, it has to be managed both active duty and post separation, so that, you know, we don't allow ourselves to be vulnerable unnecessarily.
I mean, my understanding from, and the limited understanding I have, right, if it came to a like a tactical, you know, action, right, there's not a force on earth that is in the same playing field of what our special forces operations is. And a lot of the next great battles, right, are going to come from the mind. And what I mean by is information war, technological war, and that's where the next 20 years or the next 5 years,
It's already started.
It's now. It's now. And that's where the really next phases are going. And, you know, I see, you know, and the question I'm trying to get to, because I don't want to get in, like I see like a propaganda film from China, and I don't want to go down a China conversation. I see propaganda that Russia inside their country, they have propaganda every day, you know, that goes out to their people that live in their country, right? There's a way they see Putin, there's a way they see, you know, Ukraine as a bad people, right? And to, you know, they try to portray that message to, you know, the Russian people, right? And so there's information conversations that are going on every single day throughout our world, right? Inside our country, there's a mental political conversation war that goes on, right? And so there's all of these different things that are going on, right? And it's influenced from external sources inside our country. And you know, how much of that do you think, you know, is impacting our country, and how much of that do you think we should be fighting? You know, that the world's perception of America, Americans' perceptions of Americans inside America, and those are two things I think that I see that are definitely being impacted by that information war.
Sure. I think what's important for individuals to do is to, you know, I referred to it earlier, is do your own due diligence. You know, look into things. Don't necessarily take things for face value. You know, find the facts. It takes an effort these days, because you have to look. It's not readily available. And I mean, it's no different than, you know, when we're out there trying to educate, you know, the community that we serve. You know, it's incredibly important to us to make sure we sift through, you know, what they may be hearing and what, you know, what treatments help or what helps. And it's all about doing your due diligence. And, you know, that would be, that's, I mean, to me, that is the most powerful tool, is, you know, not being influenced, but look into things for yourself, and whatever your threshold is for saying, okay, I believe or disbelieve something. I think that's what, you know, what people should do. I mean, I do that personally, you know, so that, you know, hopefully I'm making an informed, educated decision, and I apply that to everything.
The challenge a lot of people I think have, Mark, is they don't have an ability they don't have discernment, right? Between what's like Alan Pan, he's one of our original investors from 7-8 years ago, when him and I were having a conversation about how I read markets and how I read what's happening economically, how I read what's going on. And I was talking to Alan, I said, like, I've studied economics. I've studied how our economies are affected. I've studied how real estate's affected. I've studied how the stock market's affected. But I would say, you know, am I okay at that? Yeah, I'm okay at that. I have a general understanding, but what I'm really good at is being able to read between the lines of what's being said, of where our market's being pushed, where our economy's being pushed, and where the influences are putting pressure, right, on whether it's Bitcoin or real estate, you know, more recently, or other parts of it. I'm able to read through that information. I think the challenge a lot of people have is they can't decipher. on what to believe and what to not to believe and what to understand and what not to understand. If you were to give somebody in like 1, 2, 3, like, what do you, how can they decipher? Because they don't have the same glasses, right? The, rose colored lenses, they don't have the blinders, on the side, or they don't have the right, X-ray vision to see through those. And I've been trained my whole life to see that in different ways. And so I see it, but a lot of people, they don't have that component. How would you tell them to see it?
Well, I mean, I can share what I do, and I don't know that it would work for everybody, but again, I go back to that very basic thing I said before. No matter what it is in my life, what I try to do is sift through the minutia, find the facts, and let me tell you, experience will, we say what your gut say. Well, your gut says, I think your gut measure is based on experience. And so the at the end of it, are you comfortable with something or you're not comfortable with something? And you make your decision on that. And if you're not satisfied that you have the information you need, then maybe you need to lean to, not being comfortable and not, making a said decision. But, for me, that's, again, it's an effort. If it's a topic I don't know something about, I got to go learn about it. But you dig until you get to the truth, because, no matter what it is, whether it be the type of care that we provide for our folks, there's a lot of opinions about that care. And, and like I mentioned before, there's treatments that the government were asked to do that the government would not do because they didn't understand it. And the civilian sector, the private community, were the ones that made it happen and allowed us the ability to effectively get those treatments to the people that needed them. And now today, those treatments are standard, or some of them have become standard. Here's another, just a little side note is, probably 20 years ago in the military, if you said chiropractor or chiropractic medicine, they're not real doctors. That's voodoo. That's not real. And, guys were spending their own money going downtown and, getting their joints manipulated so that they could stay in the fight because the government didn't buy into it. When I was on the Kitty Hawk getting ready, right after 9/11, it was 19 October, we were going in to start the war. We literally had a doctor on board that ship. And he wasn't a quote unquote chiropractor. He was a joint manipulator. And they had realized how effective that was. And so I just share that is, you've got to just look into things, educate yourself, figure it out, and set your own measures. And I think for me, to answer your question, is what is that threshold for comfort or not to make a decision, and use that as your personal model. And as you get more educated, that scale may shift, but your approach to it should not.
I think there's some real good points there. I think that people have to pay attention to if they're going to be able to see between the lines of different things in the world, right? I think one is effort. Like, you have to make an effort. You have to make a decision. You're going to make an effort to understand, that I think there's a whole, you see it constantly on YouTube videos, the conversations about identity politics and pronouns and everything else, right? And I think that anybody who's struggling with their identity it's incredibly important with that struggle. But I think if you go back and look, that there's more groups, as in, I think every probably professional walking out of the military, maybe not every, but a lot of our professionals walking out are struggling with their identity, who they're going to be in this next phase of their life, what actions they're going to take in this next phase of their life. Somebody who goes from managing a team of 12 or managing a team of 50 or managing a team of 100 now has to go in and report to somebody, and maybe they reported to somebody before, but now no one reports to them. Now the significant changes and that identity changes. And so, an effort to say, hey, there's more out there than what I know. There's more things going on than what I know. There's so many cross conversations that people get lost into that don't have where they haven't made that effort to understand more. And then number two, I think listen. Like one of the things you're talking about is they have to listen, and you have to listen to both point of views. You have to listen to both points of the conversation. You have to listen to what actions, what's happening to these things that are going on, right? And then three, at some point in time, you have to make some decisions on the information that's being put out there, because you also have to start defending, things that aren't reality, right? And what I mean is like if there's a strong narrative that such and such is the most important topic in America, right? But it only affects a very small percentage of Americans, then there's got to be more important topics that we would be paying attention to. And I think, and maybe I'm losing people a little bit, but the reality is like there's a lot of conversations, distractions that are going on constantly in media, constantly with our politicians, where they're not addressing, I think, the most important things that are happening that are daily impacting our lives. And one of the greatest impacts of our lives here in America is our freedom. Is we hold on to our constitutional rights, our freedom rights, right, are so important, and those are protected for specific reasons. And so, like, for me, I always go back to, well, what are my core values as a person? And so if I said, one is effort, two is listen, three is decision, then four for me would be like I know what my core values are as a man, right? And my wife knows what her core values are as a woman, and as my partner in life, right? And so, like, if those first three give me information, right, and I can figure out what the alignment with what my core values are. And if you haven't established your core values, then you can't even use discernment, right? Because you haven't decided that, like, here's what I value. I value, when people need help, they need help. Or I value, that my word is my bond, right? I won't break my word, that it's one of the most valuable things to me in the world. And when I see people who break their word, I cannot trust the information that they're putting out into the world, because people are inundated constantly with media, constantly with this information, the ability to discern and put priorities, right? If you said number five, then you got to prioritize, what information, what decisions, what actions you're going to take going over there. Because it's so easy to get, like, for me as a businessman, when my brother Brent and I, he decided to come and join RADD, join our company, right? And I'm like, man, and I started really thinking about, the priority of an impact on our veterans, an impact on our soldiers, impact on our warriors. And I'm like, really, my company's not doing shit to make that impact. We weren't doing anything. And I went back and, I look at my values and I look at what's important to me, right? And one of the most important things about RADD is making an impact, right? We make an impact on our team and our people here at RADD first, and then we make an impact on our investors and second, right? And then I said, but what impact is our world impact as an organization and a company, and what's our greater mission? But if over the years I hadn't started to build my priorities, build my values, I wouldn't have been ready when I realized that gap was missing for us, right? And some other gaps, because another one of our big impacts is we, really work towards children, right? Abused, neglected, any child that isn't being given the opportunities they need to be given, in those parts of it. So I don't know, I went on a banter there for a minute. Task Force Dagger we're going to have all kinds of information for you, for anybody who's watched this podcast. So you can go to Task Force Dagger. Mark, my one thing I really want before we wrap this up, right? And I'm gonna suck, right? If you don't have one ready for me, because I didn't pre-warn you of this, an immediate need, right? What's right now an immediate need that our tribe, our people, right, could go to Task Force Dagger right now, right? That we could take care of. That like our tribe's strong, our tribe's powerful, right? I mean, I literally, if you're on here, you're one of our investors. That means I've made you a lot of money. So take some of that money and go and give it and make an impact, right? Let's take care of one of those immediate needs. And that doesn't mean you got to go take care of the entire immediate need yourself, but you can go and give. Let's handle one of those, for somebody who needs it.
Absolutely. So I have, on the health initiative side, I have probably 3 or 4 veterans that are looking at stem cell treatment, and I believe that they're insurance will pay a portion of it. So we're looking at the other portion. I think it's $800 a pop. So I will just say off the top of my head, 3 times 800, but let me also dovetail in that. So you guys know, because I think it's important. I kind of framed out where we're at today, but where we're going. And you know, so you see our vision and if it aligns, because, you know, we've done some amazing, I think since 2009 to present, we've probably helped over almost 5,000 families, and at the tune of about almost $7 million. And that's everything. And for an organization our size, that's a pretty big impact when you look at each individual and what it has done for them. But, you know, knowing what my role is in this organization, my role is to grow this organization, but growth for us, in my mind, is not, I'm not trying to create a bureaucracy. In fact, I won't allow that to happen. I just want to be able to do more of what we do. And that's it. We stay in our lane, and you know, we you know, if we grow internally some, it will only be to manage the load that we have, because as I mentioned before, we have not seen the peak of our veteran community and their needs. We haven't. It's coming. And I'm trying to set this organization up along with my fellow board members to be successful and to meet that need. And that's growth. So, you know, in 5 years, I want to be a $5 million a year organization to be able to meet that need. So, you know, I'm just wanted to share that so you guys know we are thinking about more than just today. We are thinking, you know, how do we remain effective? Because if you don't do that, I don't think you can be dependent on as being long-term effective. And you know, when we help somebody, they become part of our tribe, part of our family, and we want to build on that. And you know, and that's evident in the activities that we do. We have people that attend events that want to come back and volunteer and give back to the organization. And to me, if you were ever asked for a review, that's the best review you can get. So 3 times 800 for those stem cell, and then you kind of see where our growth path is.
Hey, everyone that's on here, right? I know we'll get that. I think we'll handle that for you pretty easily with this group. I know that they'll, you know, their hearts and us as an organization. And if they don't handle it, then we'll handle it at RADD ourselves and take care of those immediate needs. And what I would say, well, if you're listening to this podcast 6 months from now, I know we're live right now, Mark, but if somebody's listening to it 6 months ago, a year from now, there's going to be an immediate need, right? And so I would get yourself over, you know, to Task Force Dagger's website. If you're a RADD person and you use RADD's website all the time, there's a link on there. It's not RADD doesn't, we're giving, we're not, there's no, you know, we don't receive anything because we give to Task Force Dagger, right? We don't have that on our website because we're trying to get something from it. We just have it to make it accessible, you know, tool for people to be able to go give. There'll be, you know, more, immediate needs, right? As you go down the road. One of the things I would always say is if you feel, I know people tithe in the world, right? 10% of their money, you know, and I think that's important to people. And I always kind of look at my life and I put different amounts that I give, you know, to organizations on a regular basis. If you can, you know, give something, you know, on a reoccurring basis. I know if an organization can have a reoccurring regular, you know, income, they can forecast, they can predict
Yes.
help, they can go give help in different ways. And, you know, I've been able to be a part of some really great, you know, nonprofits over the years. And I tell you from what I've been able to be a part of, you know, with Task Force, their mission's right, their people are right, their directive is right. They're not wasting money. They're not wasting time. Right. And so, you know, if I make a push, and I never make pushes on a podcast ever, but this time I'm going to make it and to tell you guys to get over there, give to them. And you know, whatever you're comfortable is, don't go to a place where it makes you uncomfortable and well, maybe it should make you uncomfortable, right? But at the same time, you know, give. If you're not a person who normally gives, I'll tell you, your life's going to be better when you give. And karma is actually kind of real in the universe. And people say the more you give, the more you receive. Well, I just think you're going to find an extra little 1 ounce of peace by doing it, and maybe 100% more peace by doing it, but go and do it, right? I know they're going to make an impact and make a difference. So we're going to make sure internally as a company we get this podcast out for our people to watch, and I know it'll go out to a lot of people worldwide. So thanks, bro. It was great. It was a good chat.
Thank you. And if I could just say again, thank you personally, and thank your team for getting this set up, and thank you for everybody that attended. For me, this is so important to have that platform to maybe get the message out there. And I know I probably didn't answer everybody's questions. I'm easy to get a hold of. Don't hesitate. But I would say, visit our website. It really, I think, breaks down in more detail our missions. You can meet the board, you can meet all the people on the team and understand their backgrounds and where they're coming from. And again, have a real grasp of what this organization is about for our SOF community members and their families. And again, I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate it.
All right, brother. I appreciate you too, man. And it was, I think it were really great conversations today. And it's very easy to take for granted what we have. And what we have is because of men and women that have and made sacrifices that I'll never know and understand. But what I know is that I have a special kind of freedom here. And I thank you. And I thank so many others that for that gratitude I have. So thanks, brother. And we'll talk soon, man.
Thank you.